Hey guys, welcome back. Today this channel hits 10,000 subscribers. Let's get into it. Alright you guys, so late yesterday afternoon, I noticed on my phone this channel hit 10,000 subscribers, and I just want to say that I am so grateful to all of the people in this community who have subscribed, watched videos, added comments, and generally been a part of this community. I've had a great time with you guys, getting to know you and learning with you along the way. I'm really looking forward to the years ahead, and again, thank you for this, and I enjoy being on the journey with you. So I thought in honor of that, I would kind of offer one of my favorite pieces of photography advice that I've ever received and pass it along to you. But first, I also want to mention that I was recently interviewed for the Small Camera Big Picture podcast. So if you want to hear me talk for an hour about wedding photography and Olympus gear and things like that, hopefully you'll find it entertaining. You can go and find the Small Camera Big Picture podcast wherever you listen. And Giulio Sciorio, who's the host there, did a wonderful job, I think. We had a great time talking, and maybe went on even longer than I anticipated it to. But there's a ton of great information there. And even if you don't want to listen to me, there's other wonderful interviews on their site, including visionaries Tracy McGlosky and Joe Edelman, along with many others. So lots to learn there. Definitely go check out Small Camera Big Picture podcast. Okay, so my favorite piece of advice. So back in my newspaper days, we used to occasionally get an assignment called Wild Art. And the idea was that when the paper was slow, when there wasn't a lot of visual journalism to be had, maybe deep into the summer like it is right now in August, you would be sent out into the community to just find a photograph of anything that was happening. And it was there to kind of fill space in the paper, so it wasn't just text, there was more to read and see in there, and it made it more visually appealing. And so, wild art was an assignment that on one hand seemed kind of fun, but on the other hand a little bit daunting because you didn't know where to go or what to do, and you just had to go make it happen. But I got a great piece of advice when we used to have to run out and do that, and that was that to make a good piece of wild art, or to make a good journalism picture in general, you need to have at least 2 of 3 things. And this always stuck with me through the years, and it's the way I even sort of assess photography today, is I'm always kind of trying to get at least 2 of these things and hopefully 3 of these things into all of my photography. And I suppose it's probably easy to guess, but I thought I'd just share it with you today and kind of walk through my thought process on it. So the 3 things are moment, light, and composition. And so those are sort of the building blocks of a great image in my mind. And you might think to yourself, okay, well, does every photograph have a moment? And I really think it does. Of course, there may be some outliers or different genres of photography where it's less apparent, but whether it's, classic journalism like what I'm into, people photography, or even a landscape, you have to ask yourself, why now? Why this? Why here? And those are the answers to your moment question. So even if you're shooting a landscape, for example, maybe it's a certain day of the year that you're there, or a time of day, or maybe a lightning bolt struck you, the mountaintop you're shooting, and you caught it. It could be any of those things, but I do think a sense of moment always adds something extra to a picture. And so, here's a couple of examples on screen of like my kids in moments where, this is pure journalism where, they are excited, where I've caught like the ultimate moment in an action. And I think that screams, a great picture. But it can't be the only thing. You also need at least one of the other elements in order to have what I would say is a passable picture for wild art, or what I would consider a good photograph. And so the second thing I want to talk about, I want to offer a little, pro tip and a little bit about Olympus cameras for each of these things too. And so for me, the way that your Olympus camera helps you capture moments is that it offers a great deal of speed. All of the Olympus models that I've used have the ability to do very high sequential shooting and hardly ever slow me down in the process of creating photographs. And I think both of those things really contribute to capturing moments. So whether you're using a high-speed burst or you're just not waiting on your camera to let you take another photograph, Olympus cameras really allow you to nail it. And also in conjunction with being able to see your exposure in terms of having a mirrorless camera has made capturing moments that much easier. And so my pro tip for this kind of shooting, for getting moments, especially if you're using those drive modes, is that just remember that continuous high drive speed, like in an EM1 Mark II or an EM1X, does not offer continuous autofocus between frames. So if you're shooting at 60 frames a second, that really helps you capture a moment. But if you have a subject that's moving throughout the frame and your camera needs to refocus between frames, you need to use the L drive speed. And so you can actually define the speed of your low setting in your EM1X or EM1 Mark II or EM5 from like 10 frames a second to 8 or 6 or 4 or whatever frame rate you want. But if you set it for L, then in between each frame, the camera's going to continuously monitor the focus and then change the focus point as your subject is coming towards you or across the frame or whatever. So that's my pro tip for capturing moments with your OMD. Okay, so light. This is an easy one. You know, like if you have great light in a photograph, it's pretty easy to kind of know that, at least in my mind. But the idea here is that great light adds so much to your photograph. And I think, you know, whether it adds leading lines or it creates beautiful mysterious shadows or whatever it might be, whether you create the light or you find the light, I think photography, great photography, very often is using the light to its advantage. So, you know, I really think that OMD cameras help us in this regard because they allow us to preview that exposure. I know that I can, like, very subconsciously now make changes to my composition, even if I am radically changing the look of the ambient light because of my exposure preview. And that allows me to make nuanced changes to things in ways that you know, older generations of cameras did not allow us to do. So my pro tip there is that every time you finish a shoot, make sure that you reset your camera's live view boost setting and its SOVF setting if you're a photographer like me who's often using artificial light. This is the one aspect of using an OMD camera or a mirrorless camera that is an extra, I think, from an extra step you have to take than from using an optical viewfinder. And it's actually an added piece of functionality, of course, because being able to see your exposure for ambient light and then being able to decouple it for flash exposures is actually a huge benefit. But you don't want to get caught between shoots or between moments where you don't know which mode you're in. So at the end of every shoot, I go back and reset my SOVF and my live view boost settings so that I am set for ambient light at the beginning of every shoot. Okay, so composition. Composition is the third piece of this puzzle, and I've done a whole video on composition before, but you know, there's a huge laundry list of things that are tools that we use for composition, like rule of thirds and negative space, linear perspective and framing and silhouette, selective focus, scale, reflection and symmetry, panning, perspective, depth of field. You know, there's just all these wonderful tools, and I will link to that video up here, so if you haven't seen it, give it a watch. But to me, the big advantage here with your OMD camera for getting great composition is that you have that vari-angle screen. And being able to work that way from the hip or from your foot or from over your head is a huge advantage. So for me, you know, it's a huge degree of added flexibility, and that includes when I'm encumbered with other cameras or other gear. That vari-angle screen allows me to work from the camera away from my body quickly at my hip or over my head. And so that has been a huge change to my creativity, just being able to get to those photographs in the moment more quickly and to rely on the camera to work at the same speed and efficiency as it does when it's up to your eye. So that's it, guys. That's my tip. As you approach any scene, think about the moment, the light, and the composition, and know that if you're going to be a strong photographer, if you're going to make strong images, that you need to have at least two of those items really worked out to get a good image, and that almost every great image that you will see is all three of those things. So thanks for watching. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. 10,000 is a huge number. I'm really proud to be here. I'm proud of the community that we're building. I'm looking forward to the year ahead. And if there's anything I can do, you guys let me know. Hit me up in the comments and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.